Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So it's Sunday, and in Sunday we're gonna have Sunday school. So I remember when I was a kid, anytime I had school on the weekends, I was like, oh, not for me. But because we're on YouTube and you voluntarily come here, I think it's a little bit better. Now, in today's Sunday school, this is going to be completely for beginners, velocity banking. So I'm assuming you have no prior knowledge of velocity banking. And if you do, then it's just going to be a review from the beginning for you. Okay. So first, let's start off with the key terms, right? So the most important key term that we're going to understand with velocity banking, if you're a total noob or beginner, is a line of credit, because that's what we're going to call our quote main operating account. So if you're the average person, quote the average American, I like to call, and some people don't like that because it's like, hey, I'm not in the United States, and this applies to outside the United States too. I get it, but I always like to use the term average American as a derogatory way of describing America, kind of like sad, which is the standard American diet. But let's go over the first term, line of credit. So all it is a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and use it over and over again. So for most people, their operating account is a checking account. For you, when you're doing velocity banking, it's going to be the line of credit. Okay. Now, understand that there's different types of lines of credit. So the most common one is a credit card, right? Everybody has a credit card. It's the most widely used, although there are some restrictions with credit cards, but they're for different types. So then we have a personal line of credit, means just tied to you. Business line of credit means just tied to a business you may have. Home equity, which is almost like a personal line of credit, but it's going to be secured by your home and the equity inside it. And if you don't know what equity is, all that is just the estimated value of your home minus the loans that are tied to it, right? So if you have a home, you could kind of get almost like a credit card based on the value of your home. That's what home equity line of credit is. Okay. Now, me personally, I have $215,000 in limits in lines of credit. So think of it as like I have access to $215,000 of almost credit cards, right? No, though not all of them are credit cards. Some of them are personal, some are home equity, some are credit cards. Um, so it's kind of being able to borrow cash, especially the personal home equity, whenever I want. Now with credit cards, it's a little bit different. There are some restrictions, right? So for example, if I pay with a credit card and I have a balance on it, I can't pay the credit card balance with another credit card, right? Unless you do a balance transfer. Nor can I pay a loan with a credit card. Although with the personal home equity line of credit, nobody really cares, right? So if I borrow money from my personal line of credit and then I reborrow that money to pay the monthly payment of that personal line of credit, they don't care. But with the credit card, they care, right? So that's why there's some restrictions and some nuanced differences between the lines. Now, let's go over the actual velocity banking strategy, right? So all it is this: you put your entire paycheck into a line of credit, you take out your expenses from the line of credit, and then you rinse and repeat. And you're like, that's it? And it's like, yeah, that's it. It's not that hard, right? A lot of people overcomplicate this, but you just do that and you rinse and repeat. And the whole goal is to increase your cash flow and to pay off one debt at a time. Now, to get started, it's really easy. There's only two things that you need to do. First thing is the budget, and then next thing is you need to select your operating account. So we're going to do the first thing, which is the budget. So if you have a spreadsheet open, you could easily do this, right? So what I'm going to do is we're going to get your income. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do your budget and then also do your expenses. Okay, and then we'll have checking and savings as leftover, right? And so let's go here. And then I'm going to do two columns. So I'm going to just do average American, and I'll be this one will be velocity banking, and you'll see the difference between the two outcomes. So let's say we have $5,000 of income, right? So let me go ahead and format this so that it's numerically formatted correctly. So format cells, and then we're in currency. Okay, so let's say we have $5,000 of income and maybe $3,000 of expenses, and then after all our expenses are paid, we just kind of put $2,000 in checking and savings, okay? Now, after we've done our basic budget, we're going to have to do an expense breakdown, right? Expense breakdown. And let's go ahead and color code and highlight these. And so what's important when we do the expense breakdown is that we have to list every single debt that we have. So velocity banking is a debt removal strategy, right? So if you have no debt, there's no need to do this. But a lot of people, they find themselves where they have many, many debts and they're just minimally chipping away their debts because they're just paying, they're engaging in something called segregation of income. So now, as I said before, when we do expense breakdown, we list every single debt that we have. And the ones that I always like to use is like the student loan and auto loan. And we'll just put some information about the student loan, auto loan. So we'll say 400 a month. And I don't know if you heard the news, but student loans payments, I don't know if they restarted or they're going to restart soon, but I always hear it. And I always see in the comments on YouTube, everybody freaking out about that because they're living on the edge. So 400 a month and 6%, and we'll say 10K balance, right? And then the auto loan will be very similar to this. And put that here, 600 and 13K balance, okay? So we got that covered. We whited this out. Okay, so now we have rent. Again, this is just a made up number scenario, and let's see if you could do it with your own situation. But food, insurance, other stuff, movies, etc. Yeah, I'll just say other, make it simple. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is just make sure that our expense breakdown matches this $3,000 number. So this will be 400, 600. We'll say the rent is 1,000 and the other expenses are 1,000, right? And so now this is going to equal 3,000, okay? And so what we're going to do is with velocity banking is we're going to slightly tweak how this works, okay? Slightly tweak it because instead of just paying the student loan and auto loan as is, we're going to overpay, but overpay using a line of credit. Okay, and it'll free up some cash flow, and we're gonna be able to pay off the sucker really quickly. And one of the ways I actually like to ask, how do you solve this issue? Or the question is, because sometimes we don't even know what the question or the problem is. So what's the question that we're trying to solve is how do we easily pay off 23K of debt without changing lifestyle, right? Because here's the thing, one of the ways that we can easily pay off this debt is what if I put this $2,000 directly into the student loan? And you go, well, that might be a good idea. You could easily pay it off. And here's the thing, let me actually put this under 1 year, right? So let's say we put this $2,000 of checking savings into the student loan. Then what's going to happen is that if we dump the whole thing and we have an emergency, we call the student loan company and say, whoops, I overpaid $2,000. Can you give me $5 of it back because I have an emergency? They're going to say no. I don't, probably not, right? Because that's the nature of a loan, right? That's why they have lines of credit and they charge more because the amount that they charge more in interest is what they're charging you to have free access to the cash or to the funds in that line of credit, right? There's a reason why loans are invariably cheaper than lines of credit. Banks are not stupid, right? So you're not, pulling a fast one on them thinking like, oh, somehow the interest rates, they're not considerate of that with regards to the product features, if that makes sense. Okay, so the question is, how do we easily pay off $23,000 of debt without changing lifestyle under 1 year? Now, I can dump this money directly, but if I do that, I never get it back, really, right? And so you have to, in my opinion, okay, this is just my opinion, you have to be very disciplined in this manner to be able to overpay directly just because your liquidity is gone, right? So how do we maintain our liquidity and overpay these loans easily, right? And that's what the concept of velocity banking is. So let's assume that we have a line of credit, right? So what we have to do is just write a few things. So interest rate, this will be credit limit, and then this will be the balance, and we're going to calculate the interest paid and the month, how long it takes. So you can do this too. There's no reason why you can't do this. These are just simple formulas. All right. So let's do a few tweaks. So let's say, same income, $5,000, right? So let me go ahead and actually copy this information, might be easier. Okay. So let me just do this. Okay. So same $5,000. Now our checking and savings is going to be zero because what we're going to do is we're going to dump our entire paycheck into this line of credit, and I'm going to put in the line of credit information in. So let's say it's a 15% interest rate, and the credit limit we'll say is 25 grand. Now some of you might be freaking out and say 25 grand, who's going to lend me 25 grand in a line of credit? And my answer to that is I have over $220,000 in lines of credit, right? So if you understand what the banks are looking for and you understand credit, which is a course that we offer, you'll probably find it easier to get lines of credit. Now, I don't guarantee anything, and I don't give any sort of financial, legal, accounting advice, but sometimes you have different stages of life where this might seem like a big deal, but at other stages of life, like 25,000, that's it, right? Based on your understanding and education. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and go back here and let's try to redo some of our expenses so that we can free up some cash flow. And you may, what do you mean by that? So let's just do this, okay? So let's say that we move this $10,000 balance and this $13,000 balance to this line of credit. So that's going to be 23 grand, okay? So 23 grand. So in reality, what we would do is we would go to the bank's website and say, I want 23 grand from my personal line of credit. And then they'll dump 23 grand in your checking savings. And then you go ahead and pay these student auto loans off. So this is going to be 0, 0, right? And then once you've done that, this will be 0. And our rent and our other expenses are going to stay the same. And so now what we're going to do is what we're going to do is recalculate our expenses. And notice magically, when we use our line of credit as our main operating account and move the balances of loan to the line of credit, the expenses magically went to 2,000. Because what's going to happen is when we dump our entire paycheck into that line of credit, we don't have to care about the minimum monthly payment. Now, if we're doing the average American way where our checking account is our main account and we're just making the monthly payments, the minimum monthly payments of the line of credit, like most people do. In fact, I talked to many people who are like, I have 20K in savings and 20K on credit card debt. Again, the difference is what's your operating account? Are you dumping your entire paycheck to the line of credit or not? Okay. And here we're going to dump our entire paycheck to the line of credit. And so what this is going to do is going to go down by a balance of 5,000, right? And then eventually, because we're going to take our expenses from the line of credit, it's going to go up 2,000. Okay. And so now, after every month, this should go down by 5,000 minus 2,000, which is 3,000, approximately, right? So again, this is a simplification because we're not factoring the interest, right? And I just kind of like to do this separately, although it's not that realistic. But in this scenario, it'll be good enough. 7. Okay. So now let's go ahead and we're going to estimate the interest. And really, how does the interest calculate, right? The interest is calculated by the average daily balance. So if after for the first month, and I dump my entire paycheck in of the $5,000, it's going to be less than the $23,000. It's going to be between 23 and 20, right? But let's just do this because I want to overestimate things because they say that the key to happiness is beating expectations, right? So if you have low expectations, you'll certainly beat them. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and take the previous month's balance, G2, multiply it by the interest rate, 0.15, and then divide by 12. Okay, so you go ahead and do that, and you should get a sum of all the interest. And somebody pointed this out that the sum button on LibreOffice is right here. Let's go ahead and sum it up, right? And it should be 1250 here, right? So about 1250. And so if we look at our cash flow, which is 3,000, so it's 5,000 minus 2,000, it's $3,000. It's gonna, again, so it's, if we put this 1,250 here, then it's gonna be 3,250, and then we'll just say it takes about 8 months, okay? But that, again, for demonstration purposes, and I know this isn't realistic because the interest is always added at the end of every statement balance, I just like to just kind of show two columns and then just dump the interest at the end, although that's not always realistic, but in this case it will be. So here's the thing. Do we answer a question of how we easily paid off 23K of debt without changing our lifestyle under 1 year? Right? So this is going to take about 8 months and only cost us about $1,250 in interest. Now let's say, okay, now let's say this. Let's say at any time in the process, we had a $200, $300 emergency. Are we going to be okay? Yeah, definitely. We're definitely going to be okay, right? Because we have the available balance of the line of credit in case we have emergencies. But the only thing that happens is that we just delay the payoff by 1 or 2 months, right? Now, here's the thing. When we do it this way, if we dump our entire checking and savings into our loans, our liquidity is gone and we have no more emergency, right? And the other thing people mention is, well, why don't you just do that and then use this as a backup? You certainly can, but the reason why most Americans struggle with debt is because they're engaged in something called segregation of income, which we're not really going to go into in this video, but if you look that up in our YouTube channel about the topic, you'll understand that most Americans just don't have 1 or 2 loans. They got like 5, 6, 7. I even met a person with like 15 or 14 loans, right? And because their money is split all over the place, I always like to say what the up the wazoo, they're not going to be easily pay off their debt. And the idea is that we increase cash flow and we have one place where we put our entire income, which makes it easy for us to pay off the debt, right? So we can see that it goes down $3,000 every single month. Again, about 8 months and about 1,250 interest, right? How do we easily pay off $23,000 of debt without changing your lifestyle under 1 year? And how long did it take us? 8 months and 1,250 in interest. And it's less than 1,250. I'm overestimating that because it's based on the previous month's balance rather than the average daily balance for the line of credit. Okay, so I hope you learned something here for Velocity Banking if this is your first time. And again, if you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment in the comment box below. And also, if you're interested in joining our mentorship group, because not only do we learn Velocity Banking, we learn a lot of other stuff like real estate investing, go ahead and click the Google form link below, and we'll get a one-on-one Zoom call, see if you're a good fit for the group. All right, have a great day, everybody, and hope this was a great beginner Sunday school class for you. All right, so we'll see you next time.